and welcome to another video. So this is going to be my second half of my complete anime collection, mainly focusing on my DVDs. Now, of course, some of these things are actually DVD or Blu-ray combo packs. Some of them are actually just Blu-ray, but I sort of group them together because they're in that larger DVD size packaging, box sets, that sort of thing. This shouldn't be any longer than my last video. I do tend to have more things in Blu-ray size packaging compared to DVD, so hopefully this will go quicker than the last video, but I think it'll still be somewhat long anyways, so apologies in advance. But I hope you all enjoy, and I'll get straight into it. So here we have the first shelf, a whole bunch of DVD size box sets, like I said. Some of these have multiple seasons in it, like you would have seen with my Blu-ray stuff if you watched that video. And yeah, so quite a bit from a whole bunch of different publishers, and some, at least one box set here that I made myself, as well as just other releases. So looking at the first shelf of box sets, the first release I have is Antique Bakery, one of Nozomi Entertainment's early thin pack releases. I love this show. It's the only anime adaptation that any of Fumi Yoshinaga's works have gotten, and it's probably her most well-known due to this anime. I got this on sale. I hadn't really... I was not the Yoshinaga fan that I am currently when I first watched this show, but it certainly got me interested in the rest of her works after seeing this series. The cases themselves are pretty boring, just, you know, pastries and cakes and things. So yes, this was somewhat the start of my interest in Yoshinaga, and it is a fairly good place to start. I think it gives you a pretty balanced look at her overall style and sort of things she likes to have in her stories. The next series I'm going to show off I'm not going to show off the box because I'm part of the way actually making it. This is one where I'm making my own box, but the show itself is Big Wind Up, the first season and the second season. So I am making a box that will fit all three parts. This is the first half season sets release that Funimation put out. This series never got a complete collection due to low sales and went immediately to the save line. And it was only recently last year that we got the second season from Lucky Penny / Nozomi. So yes, I was very happy we finally got season 2 of the show because it is really, really great. It's one of the earlier sports series that I feel now would probably be more popular, just because we have a lot more sports series exposed to just general audiences in the Western world. So yeah, it was a little bit before its time, and I do hope that we see more of it someday, but considering that it's not really a super popular show, that may just be a pipe dream. Next is the Darker Than Black Gemini of the Meteor box. This is the limited edition that came with season 2. But it does actually have the season 1 thin pack set in here, and then season 2, which came with this box. In this particular case, I do also have the season 1 Blu-rays, which of course many of you know or should know that this show was released on Blu-ray, but in like really weird collector's packaging. It was sort of like a manila file with all these extra bits and bobs, and really wasn't too great. I kept a lot of the extras for that release, but as for the packaging itself, I just threw it away. It really wasn't anything special to write home about, but this is the first season on DVD, and that is the first one that I bought. This is from the insert box in here, so it's just a bit of art card stuff. And then, like I said, season 2, and inside we have the first season Blu-rays as well as the second season Blu-rays. A lot of people don't really like the second season for this show. Again, I'm sort of like, I'm not a super massive fan. Whenever I'm not like a passionate fan, I tend to find that I'm not really let down by second seasons that aren't as good as the first, just because I don't really have the loftiest of expectations. I don't know, maybe I approach things differently than other people, but I don't know. In any case, this is a really nice release, one of Funimation's older limited editions, and one that I believe sold out in pre-orders, which is pretty unusual. Next is a show I absolutely adore. The second season is currently airing, and I hope that someday, if NIS America ever does return to the larger industry, anime licensing industry, which may or may not happen, we'll see another release for this show. But that is the Eccentric Family, the limited edition box set. This is another one that, when I heard it was licensed, I knew that I would have to immediately pre-order it, because it is just a fantastic series all around. Exactly the sort of thing I'm into. A lot of mythology, Shintoism, and the art style is phenomenal for this show. If you're not watching this, if you haven't seen it, it's on Crunchyroll, so do yourself a favor and watch it, because it is so worth it. Oh, the animation of Kyoto that the studio does is just breathtaking. It's a beautiful, very heartwarming story of family with a sort of magical spin on it. And of course, like all NIS releases, it comes with a book. These ones more so like a lot of limited edition books rather than NIS's earlier releases. So it is actually in a DVD sized box compared to their much longer boxes that they used to do. And this is a Blu-ray only release, so although it is DVD size packaging, it is just a Blu-ray show. Or show on Blu-ray, should I say. Next is the two seasons of another series and another mangaka where this is her only anime adaptation. And that is Emma, a Victorian Romance, the anime adaptation of the Emma manga by Kaoru Mori. This one comes with a very thick book with a lot of extras, as well as a whole bunch of discs. Oh, I'll start from here. Disc 1, Disc 2, Disc 3, and Disc 4, as you saw before. I put this advertisement postcard in there as well. And like I said, very thick book, lots of info and settings and history and all sorts of things. Another Nozomi Entertainment release, one of their older thin pack box sets. And I really like these box sets from Nozomi. I have quite a few. And of course, season 2, which is a direct sequel to the first season. This show doesn't completely adapt the manga, but the manga sort of ends with a bunch of side stories anyway, so you're not really missing out on anything. It does sort of go in a little bit of a different direction at the end, but it is basically the same. Disc 3, and spoilers, but Disc 4 is the ending. And of course we have a much thinner book this time, but still some pretty nice line art and extra information and interviews and all that sort of thing. I really do like Emma. It's a wonderful series. The show is very good, and I know you can get like pretty thinner standard releases if you're not too fan of box sets. Nozomi has done re-releases. Next is a show that I love and I talk about a lot just because of the recent re-release of the manga, and that is Fruits Basket, the complete series. This is the collector's edition version that Funimation put out in 2011, a couple of years ago now. It has the entire series on 4 discs, like so, and then it has this extra thick one, which is just extras, a bunch of whole new extras plus a booklet in there. This show has just recently been announced for getting a Blu-ray, but the age of the show, I don't really think that Blu-ray will do much favors for it, so I don't really think I will upgrade, especially not at this point. I don't really feel like you'd gain anything by owning the Blu-rays, especially considering this set is probably the best the show has ever looked, and like I said, you have a booklet in here with a bunch of character stuff as expected. But yes, Fruits Basket is wonderful. I think it's a pretty easily recommended shoujo series. It's a little bit quirky. It's got an interesting twist and dynamic to it, but it's not like completely reliant on the tropes of what you might necessarily think of a high school set shoujo series. Next is this one is one that like I've said previously, I sort of Frankensteined the discs, so I have the whole series in one box, and that is Genshiken. This is the release, the box set for the first season. This came with the 3 singles, or it came with 1 single and then you could fit the whole show in there. It did come with the second box set for season 2. What I did though was I bought this Genshiken release, which is now very, very hard to find. It had both seasons and the OVA in there. And buying Volume 1 of Genshiken and Genshiken 2 separately, I split it into 3. So in this box we have the 3 discs of season 1 of Genshiken. In this one, which uses the cover and all the spine art and everything for the complete collection, we have the OVA, which is sort of a branch between the 2 seasons, and then we have season 2 in this one, which of course is Genshiken 2, with the 3 discs in there. So it is the complete, like, original series of Genshiken, but not necessarily in a specific release that a company put out. I really like the way these covers and boxes and things have been designed. Is very, very fun and interesting, considering that this is a very otaku focused show. And I chose this box in particular just because I really like the art used for it. The second one is also good, but I prefer this one. And speaking of Genshiken, we then also have the NIS release of the second generation, which is either the 3rd or 4th season, depending on how you quantify the OVA series. So this is a follow-up to the original Genshiken with a mostly new cast, but some characters, I mean, most of the characters do return in some capacity. But it's really a reflection on how the otaku culture has changed in Japan. In the original Genshiken, there is much more of a focus on male fans, giant robots, sexy girls, all that sort of thing. Whereas with Genshiken Generation, it's exploring how female otaku have really changed the industry since like the original came out. And so it's a lot more focused on like BL culture and fujoshi and doujin and that sort of thing. So it's very, very different. Again, we have a book. This one opening Japanese style, which is pretty interesting. I don't quite know, but again, it's sort of like a magazine or a bunch of stuff. It's pretty interesting, and I like that NIS followed up with how that sort of design for the releases, and then the discs are like so and like so. So again, we've got a somewhat Figma looking box here, and then of course the PS4 or PSP looking game. All very, very clever. At least in my opinion, I think. So yes, Genshiken overall is a pretty interesting show, and you can definitely see how time and like new fans and current popularity and interests and things have changed how this show works and how the which characters are important and influential, and yeah, it's just overall very different but pretty great. Next is another box set that I made myself. This one is for Gothic. So the artwork is like so. We have spine art, and then on this side, this is artwork that was taken from the Blu-ray box set released in Japan. But inside, if I could get it out, is actually the Australian release of this show. We've had this show on DVD for a very long time. And I got these DVDs for $5 a piece in one of Madman's semi-recent sales. I know that it's coming out with a dub and Blu-rays and all that sort of thing, which I may purchase in the future and just stick the discs in here. Pardon me. But as for now, I'm not really in a huge rush to rewatch this show anytime soon, so I will probably just wait for a re-release of a complete series collection just for the discs to do so. So put them in there and enjoy. Next is another box which was actually for the singles of the first season, but is now containing the entire series. And that is Hellgirl. This box set is the Australian release, as you can see with the Madman logo here. I actually really like this box set compared to the very plain... I mean, the US one is also very nice, but I find the artwork very beautiful on this one. But inside, we have the US thin pack release of the first season, as well as the entire season, the Australian release. It's all of the discs of the first season just in, a 6-disc thing with the cover of volume 1. Then we have the 2 collections of season 2 and then the 2 collections of season 3. I know that we are getting a somewhat season 4, which will be half, like these episodes, half new content. And if that is getting released, I'm sure it will find a place in here someday, somehow. Hellgirl's a very interesting show. I'm honestly very surprised that it managed to get 3, now 4 seasons, considering it is very episodic. But there's some pretty great episodes in the series. Each one is, although being fairly repetitive in execution and how things end up, it's always interesting to see the circumstance that the characters are put under. So yes, Hellgirl was one of the first shows that I ever watched, actually, and these releases, which did come in like a cardboard thin case Funimation release, was one of the first shows that I ever bought on disc. So it is a somewhat nostalgic series for me. Next is one of my absolute favorite series. I adore this show. And this is Kinos Journey, ADV's first thin pack release of the series. Luckily, we do get somewhat consistent re-releases of this show. As you should, because it is a wonderful, wonderful series. I cannot wait for season 2, which we are finally getting. There are a bunch of like films and stuff that we haven't gotten released, but the show itself is great. Collected on 3 discs. I love Kino. She is a magnificent character. It's a very reflective and calming, peaceful sort of series. I would put it in the same sort of feeling or atmosphere as something like Mushishi. So if you're a fan of that show, you should definitely check out this show. It doesn't have the same premise, but it makes you feel similar things, if that makes sense. I don't know if it does, but I love Kinos Journey. Next are the US releases, US like collector's edition releases of Kyokara Mao, or God Save Our King, a comedy that is, I feel a little bit dated, but considering the sort of jokes that it goes for, but it's still pretty fun. The story of a normal boy falling into a fantasy world, finding out that he's actually the next in line to become Demon King. Pretty interesting. This particular set has all the US discs. There's a whole there's like 9 single discs in here, which is crazy. I mean, shows nowadays don't, 9 discs is a lot for 30 odd episodes, 35 episodes. Yes, so this was one of Genion's later releases before they went away. And in this one, we have some of the Genion US releases, but then we also have here, you can see the Australian releases, because the second half of this show is quite hard to find in the US releases. So this is the entire show, although half of it is Australian discs compared to the US discs. So, it's all of it, but it's not necessarily all from the same company. I really like these semi-book format releases, although they are susceptible to being a little bit beat up. It's a pretty interesting design, but I wouldn't necessarily say it's very good. I'm glad that companies don't really rely on that sort of format anymore. It's very stressful to think that, those could be broken, and it's so hard to find replacements. Next is another show that I love. This is another Genion release, but in thin pack DVDs, and that is Last Exile. The complete box Range Murata edition. Pardon me. God, can't pronounce anything today. On the back you see all of the artwork that is in this box set, which is very, very beautiful. So, disc 1 we have So. And this is the voice actor for this character, which that was a recent release. My sister just got it on a convention this year. That's pretty fun. I really like this show. I'm not really a fan of the second season at all in any way, shape, or form, which I think is probably a pretty normal opinion for fans of the original. They're not necessarily that big a fan of the sequel, the Silver Wing, Fam of the Silver Wing, or whatever it is. I feel it became very much what Last Exile was, sort of the antithesis of. It certainly became much more pandering to the overall industry, and it wasn't executed very well. The story it tried to tell, there was certainly very good ideas in there, and I did watch it all. I watched it streaming, but it never reached the heights of the original story. And I know, just like 20 minutes ago, I did say that I tend to go into sequels with no expectations, and I tend to enjoy them on their own merits. But Last Exile was one that I think that it really didn't work. They had a lot of good ideas, but in the end they weren't able to really live up to what they were setting up. Not just the first season, but what they had set up within their own season, it became a bit muddled and lost, and therefore didn't really work as well. So, yes. Anyway, that's my opinion, and I'm sure there's plenty of people who would argue that that is completely hypocritical of me, but I don't care. I don't care, that's my opinion. And finally, for this first shelf, we have the Australian box release of Love Live. This box came with the movie, as you can see, but it actually does fit both seasons and the film. Blu-rays of both of these, as well as the film, although it is in the larger DVD size packaging. I don't really know why they did it this way, but I bought the season shows secondhand because I do enjoy Love Live, but it's not like a favorite, and I didn't like need the cards because these came with the exclusive School Idol Festival cards for certain characters. That was season 1. This is season 2, which again comes with a book and then again film, book, and just thing. And I feel there's cards in here, I think, as well. So yes, Love Live, I think, is probably one of the most popular Idol series that come out. It certainly has the most merchandise, aside from Idol Master, at least within Japan. I haven't seen any Sunshine. I know that a lot of people like it, despite being very, like they didn't think it would be as good as the original. But I do enjoy this series quite a bit, although I do, like, in reality, I have a lot of issues with idol culture. But, I mean, this is a fun show. It's got cute girls, it's got good songs, it's got some fun dance stuff in it. It's just pretty likable overall. That being said, I'm not really a huge idol fan. In general, I don't watch too many anime focused on idols and idol groups, so this was a bit of an experiment for me, and from what I can tell, it is probably one of the most well-regarded. I'm not going to say the best, but I liked it enough to get the figures, which are done very, very well. So, I mean, that might just be an indication of my enjoyment for this series, and yeah. I do really like this. I appreciate whenever Australia can come out with a box, especially if the US doesn't, because they're few and far between, but when they're done well, they're done pretty well. So, good job, Madman? I think Madman released it. Maybe it's Hanabi. No, Madman. Good job, Madman. On the second shelf, we have another box that I made, as well as some more that contain multiple seasons and aren't necessarily what the show itself came in, but I like to organize it that way. And yeah, so there's only 2 shelves of these DVD box sets, so there are some more that I'm hoping to get, like the rest of Sailor Moon, that sort of thing, but I find that these DVD box sets are a lot harder to find in modern releases, unless you are one to buy a lot of Sentai premium editions, which is not really the case for me. So yeah, this part of the collection is very slow growing, if it ever grows at all, honestly. On to the second shelf, we start with a Japanese import, and that is Library War: The Wings of Revolution. This is the sequel film to the television show. We did recently get the TV show on DVD from Discotek. This Blu-ray does come with English subtitles, which is why I bought it, because it is, like, it's a really strong follow-up, and it really is the proper conclusion to the series. And I really like Library Wars. It's a pretty good show, so that's why. Oh, pardon me. That's why I bought this one. It's really, really nice inside as well, as should be expected with Japanese releases. We have the discs, a bunch of special discs and stuff. And then really nice digipack with that. And then we also have a storybook, which if you've seen the show is somewhat important to the plot line of the series. Of course, all in Japanese, but a nice little extra all the same. Next is another box set that I made myself. This one is not as good just because I had some printer problems, like you've seen with the Full Metal one. And this is for Mononoke. As you can see, there's some stripy lines, but you can't really tell. It actually works pretty well for this. The spine, and then this side, which has Medicine Seller himself. And inside we have the single for Goblin Cat, or Bakeneko from Samurai Horror Tales, and then Mononoke, which is the show proper. This series started with this. It was a 3-episode arc from the larger Samurai Horror Tales series, which was so popular that it actually inspired studio and director and all of that to make a proper television show from it. So here we have Samurai Horror Tales. This is the US release from Genion. And then this is the Australian release of Mononoke, although the US did later get their own release, both subtitled only, so it's there's no dub or anything with this show, although this one does have a dub. So yeah, pretty interesting. They are related, but at the same time, not exactly related. And again, another series that I really, 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 really love, and I'm very glad that we finally got a release for in any capacity. Next is another technically Japanese release, the boxes at least. And this is a box I bought in Japan, secondhand, when I was there in 2015. If you can't tell, this is for the first, it's a limited edition for the first disc of season 1 of Mushishi. So inside this box, which opens like so, we have season 1 of Mushishi, the US release, the Versailles collection. This is the one that I bought first of all. There's some postcards and stuff in there. But we also have season 2, which is an Australian release, the only English release of this show that I know, considering that Aniplex has licensed it and isn't giving any of it up. These do not come with it, that is just extras. But it is the entirety of the second season, all 20 episodes, plus the 4, or technically 2, specials, which are additional stories that are meant to be for this series. So it's pretty much the entirety of Mushishi on DVD. The only thing that I don't have in this collection, and which has never had an English release, is the OVA between the first season and the second season, the recent second season, about the solar eclipse. So I don't think that's been licensed anywhere, which is a shame because it's very, very good. But it's on Crunchyroll, so I'm not actually missing out. But I would love to someday own it on disc and then somehow find a place for it in my collection, and preferably in this box set. But yeah, so this is another instance of me just doing what I want, putting discs with other discs however I want to, and just making the collection to my personal preferences. Next is a UK release, which is a very, very close replica of the Sentai release of Monthly Girls Nozaki-kun. In the US, this comes with a book and I think a bunch of like various sticker sort of extras, I think. I don't remember. I know it comes with a book. This one does not, but it does have the soundtrack, the 3-disc soundtrack that came with the US release, as well as the show on Blu-ray and DVD. I got this one, the UK release for this one, because the box was thinner, 2, because it was pretty much exactly the same, 3, it was cheaper. that's basically it. But we have the Blu-ray case, the DVD case, and the soundtrack case. This is a very, very funny show. I really enjoy it. It has a great sense of humor. The manga is also very, very funny. I highly recommend it. I honestly recommend you watch the anime before you try the manga, just because it gives you a pretty good idea of the timing of a lot of the comedy, because it is a 4-coma series, so it relies on that very sharp, fast comedic style, which I think is done very, very well in this anime adaptation. So yes, I love this show. And I'm glad that I could get a nice release for this one, even though I didn't necessarily want the largest box. And of course, this wasn't the largest premium edition that Sentai has done, but I'd rather just buy the UK one, especially you saved quite a bit of money, so I'm not complaining. Next is an Australian release for a series that never got a full release in the US. It did get a partial release, but we got the entirety of the series in 5 releases in a slip box, and that is Melchior Sawa's Monster, the complete 74, I think, episodes on 15 DVDs. All dubbed, all with, subtitles, everything. So it is the entirety of what Viz created, dubbed, licensed, but Viz only ever released the first 15 episodes, so technically what is part 1 in this box. This was released by Siren Visual, a company that I really, really love, but have not been active here in Australia for a very long time. I know that they changed owners, and so they sort of have been laying low for several years now at this point. I really hope they come back, because they license such underappreciated gems of series that, years and years before the US gets them, and stuff that, still hasn't gotten a US release. So I hope someday you return to a Siren Visual, because you are on the literal edge of, the best of the best for people like me who love niche series and don't really see the possibility of other companies licensing them. Next is another NIS America release. This is a DVD and Blu-ray set for My Little Monster, or Tonari no Kabuts-kun. This is, like I said in my Blu-ray video, I am a big fan of Brainspace, especially a lot of their older shows. Series that are a little bit unconventional and don't exactly follow the mold of what you expect. They did a really good job with this release. As for the show itself, I mean, it's a very unconventional couple, so it's a very unconventional show in my opinion, although the cast is pretty great. This is the second disc, so it does contain disc 1 and 2 of the Blu-ray. And DVD, or disc 2 of the DVD and Blu-ray is what I mean. And then this one contains disc 1 of the DVD and Blu-ray. Yeah, there are some people who do have problems with this show, and I can totally understand why. But for me personally, I never really had the same issues. And as such, I really, really do like this show a lot. I think Natsume, this character here is a cutie. She's awesome. All their side characters really make this show. The main characters are just so odd and unusual for teenagers that it's nice having some actual normal teenagers in relation to it. It's a well done dynamic, which isn't always executed that well, but in this show there are problems, but The biggest thing is that it treats the problems as problems, which not every series does. It doesn't romanticize certain issues with, pardon me, violence and anger and that sort of thing. So in that way, it's very refreshing. Then we have another classic series that really needs no introduction. This is the Platinum Complete Edition of Neon Genesis Evangelion, the thin pack release, which is now, for what I understand, impossible to get. I bought this when it was on sale on Right Stuff many a year ago, back when I was still buying quite a bit from Right Stuff. Disc 1 and Disc 2. Yep. Disc 3, we have another signature here from voice actor. Disc 4, Disc 5, and Disc 6. So the entirety of the series, it doesn't have all of the extras that the original, like, fat pack release did, or singles release, should I say, in certain later re-releases, but it has the series in a very, very nice, good format when the Blu-rays come out, because it will be when, not if. It's an eventuality that we'll get the Blu-rays, although not for probably several years. I will upgrade, but I don't think I will be getting rid of this box set. It's just very, very, very nice. And following from that, we have the Australian release of the movie collection, which contains Death and Rebirth and the End of Evangelion. If two films ever needed a re-release, it would be these two, because, oh my goodness, especially End of Evangelion, it looks so, like, the DVD itself is pretty awful. The video quality is terrible. So I will, yeah, it's no question on upgrading to Blu-ray again when it happens. Next is a series that I adore, is hugely influential, and again, one that I didn't necessarily think we'd ever see licensed, but thanks to Nozomi, I can just be happy forever. And that is The Rose of Versailles, Part 1 and Part 2. The historical drama shoujo series from the 70s that the manga today and the show is supremely influential. These releases came with these, like, poster board things. I'll show. I keep them in the boxes with the discs. They're very nice. I like them a lot, actually. Yeah, this is a fantastic, fantastic series. Don't let the age or the sort of covers or anything put you off. It is marvelous. And if nothing else, it's sort of like Night on the Galactic Railroad. It's so influential at this point. You have seen series that, if you're an anime fan, you've seen series that reference this without probably realizing it. And you really need to understand, like, the cultural relevance of this series. It's so good, and it's still fabulous. I cannot wait for whenever Udon decides to actually finally release the manga, which they licensed, but we've yet to see a proper release yet, or release date yet for any of the manga, which is sad, because I want it so bad. So bad. And then we have Part 2. Which also comes with this book, so, you know, a bunch of extras as you would expect from this. Disc 1, Disc 2, Disc 3, and Disc 4. So each of these have, I think, yeah, each of these parts have 20 episodes. It's a 40-episode series altogether. So it's pretty great. Jump on it. It's really good. I know other people have also recommended this series. So yeah, if you don't take my word for it, just watch some videos about it. Hopefully you'll be convinced, because it is really, really, really very good. And it's exactly my sort of thing especially historical sort of gender expectation stuff, and just that beautiful 70s drama flair. Next is a series which I've said before I don't have a super huge amount of nostalgia for, but is incredibly popular and influential in its own right, in a different way than Rose of Versailles, and that is Sailor Moon, the classic edition. These are the Australian releases, probably the best English releases for this series. I know there's a lot of issues with Viz's releases, video and audio. Well, I don't necessarily know audio quality wise, but video quality wise especially. These are DVD only sets, and I only have the first part for these. It comes with a booklet as well, but they do use the Italian sort of video files, which are the best that you can find, almost even better than the Japanese. So it is really the best with the video quality, as well as having the new dub and English subtitles and all of that. So yes, the original Sailor Moon, and also Sailor Moon R, which is the second season. Again, only the first part so far, and part 3, Sailor Moon R, has, what am I saying, Sailor Moon S has come out just recently, but I have yet to get it. It's in a very beautiful blue box. And of course, if you're a Sailor Moon fan, you know that there will be 5 of these box sets containing the 200 odd episodes. There's a lot of episodes of Sailor Moon. Again, not a series that I'm super like nostalgic for. I never really had the chance to watch it as a kid growing up. But just for I do really enjoy parts of what I know of Sailor Moon. And I look forward to watching it in its entirety. I've seen bits and pieces, but not the full thing. So I'm not the biggest Sailor Moon fan, but at the same time, I am happy to support this recent re-release of the series. Next is a show that just got a re-release on Blu-ray, and I may upgrade, I don't know. I'm sort of on the fence. But that is Sound of the Sky, a show that looks and acts a bit like K-On! It certainly got a lot of detractors at the time of its release for being a clone of the popular girls show or band show. But this is very much a war drama, very melancholic, and whilst also about music, is a different sort of series. We've got disc 1, disc 2, disc 3, disc 4, and again, of course, a booklet, like with all of Nozomi's releases. This, I think, also came with postcards. I don't know. It's been a while. Yeah, and all of the discs pretty much look exactly like that. The DVD set itself is really very nice, so I don't know how much of an upgrade the Blu-rays will be. I may get them, but again, it's not a super high priority, and it would be something where I put the discs into this box rather than keeping them in like just a Blu-ray case, because it doesn't have a nice fancy release. Anyway, finally for my DVD box sets is Spice and Wolf, a series I absolutely adore. This again is a box that came with season 2, similarly to Darker Than Black. And as you can see, I have the similar releases for the discs. This we have this card, which again, like a lot of the right stuff, is just advertisement. But then we have what was the re-release of the DVDs for season 1 when this came out. I didn't buy the show until I got these two together. But this also has the Blu-rays, which were a separate release. So it is a DVD Blu-ray set of both seasons. This one came with DVD and Blu-ray. So yeah, it's the full both versions in here. So I'm not missing out on anything. Spice and Wolf is really great. I absolutely adore this show. I love the light novels even more so, and I cannot wait for volume 18 this month. This month? Yeah, later this month. Who'd ever thought that economics and sort of pagan god belief systems and the fight against the rising Christianity in England and all that would be so terribly interesting and have such a compelling love story. But here we are. If you haven't tried Spice and Wolf, again, I'm sure there are multitudes of re-releases. I'm sure it's streaming on a lot of places as well. Do yourself a favor. From what I can remember, the dub is pretty good. And allow yourself to be educated by our wonderful Wise Wolf Holo. And here in the final of my the last box was not the final one. I just remembered I have this one. This is the only like singles box that actually contains all the singles that I have, compared to like Hellgirl, which has a whole bunch. It's the singles box, but it has a whole bunch of seasons in there. This just has the complete collection in the box. And I got this box, or I got this set very, very cheaply back when, again, Right Stuff was having sales. This is an older Funimation release, so they were just sort of getting rid of extra stock that had been in, available for a long, long time. And that is Beck Mongolian Chop Squad, which now is just called Mongolian Chop Squad in re-releases. But this contains all 6 of the singles for this series. Most of them were new. I think the 5th volume I had to buy secondhand. But these came with like guitar picks and a whole bunch of stickers and stuff like that. Back in the days of single volume releases. I don't own too many of these sorts of box sets, but the amp in particular is just a very cool design for this show, especially if you're familiar with it. So I have disc 1, disc 2, disc 3, disc 4, disc 5, and finally disc 6. So all 24, 25, I can't remember, episodes in one, and all fits into this very, very nicely. Australia had a similar box, but it was open. It didn't actually have a hinge or anything. It looks like this on one side, and then, around but then here it was open, so it was just like a slide-in disc one. So inspired by this, but it wasn't exactly the same. But yeah, so this is the only like actual singles set that I still own, and it's probably the only one that I will ever own. I'm not likely to get rid of this either. It's very, very lovely, lovely set for a show that's pretty good. I don't adore it, especially don't really like parts of it concerning one certain character. But that, again, that's my opinion. It's a very well-regarded show, and I do enjoy it for what it is. You may notice that I tend to like shows related to music. You will see even more coming up. So, yes, if my tastes aren't obvious, then I don't know what to tell you. Next is a bunch of standard DVD releases, including, of course, Viz's 1999 Hunter x Hunter release, which is impossible to find now. I was very, very lucky in finding a entire set secondhand for like less than $100 when certain parts, these two, go for over $100 generally, so I was very lucky. Next is Tiger and Bunny. This is, as you can see, the Blu-ray release and the Australian release of this show, so it's not really the same as the US release. It comes in a digipack with a bunch of like cards and extras and things, but although with these cardboard digipacks it does tend to get chewed up after a while. Again, voice actor stuff, voice actor signatures. Then we have Chrono Crusade, the thin pack release, or the, I guess it's not thin pack, but the single volume, I guess, release of the entire series. A show that is sort of very middle of the ground, but at the same time, the ending hits really, really hard. I was sort of not very impressed for most of it. I enjoyed a lot of the characters, but it was like, okay, well, this is where it's going. And then it ended, and I bawled like a baby. So, I mean, I guess I can't tell. That's why sometimes you really need to stick with shows. Then we have House of Five Leaves. This is the Australian release. Again, another show that was licensed years and years before the US saw their release of this show. Absolutely beautiful. Again, this is a anime adaptation of a mangaka who I really love, Natsume Ono. She does also have Ristorante Paradiso adapted into anime, so it's not her only anime adaptation, but it is the only one that I own currently, unfortunately. But House of Five Leaves is phenomenal. I highly recommend it. Then we have Kaiba, which is at this point an Australian exclusive. Another series that has never had a release anywhere outside of Australia, and English release, should I say. The UK doesn't have this. The US doesn't have this. And it's really a shame because it is a fabulous, fabulous series. Of course, I am a big Yuasa fan. I've seen pretty much all of his work, so it was a no-brainer for me to get Kaiba. Then is something I mentioned before, that being Library Wars. This is the television show released by Discotek, so it contains the complete TV series plus the OVA special, whatever you want to call it, which is actually somewhat important to the plot, so it's not just like extra guff for fan service or anything. Very, very good, interesting series set in a future in which like books and reading is sort of outlawed. It's like a struggle between state and then the private library system. It's really weird, but very interesting, fascinating. Then we have Nirma Daikon Brothers, which is sort of a satirical comedy. It has a lot to say about certain things within Japanese society, and it is a full musical, so every single episode is majority song, honestly. It follows these three characters who have a band. They sort of want to reach fame and glory and build their own stadium on their daikon plant area, like fields wherever they grow. My sister loves this show. She loves she's seen certain episodes of this show more than like I can even consider. She adores this show. It's fun. Like, it's pretty funny, but sometimes I will never understand my sister's tastes. And Nirma Daikon Brothers is like an absolute favorite of hers. Then we have Romeo and Juliet, or Romeo x Juliet, whatever you want to call it. This was another one of the first series I ever bought. You can tell because it's this era of Funimation releasing things in thin packs with the cardboard slipcover. A very interesting reimagining, sort of similar to Gankutsuo in that it follows the literature that it's based off of, but it's not exactly 100% accurate. Like, it's an adaptation. It's not like a one-for-one story, presentation of the story. Very, very good. Very anime. But I think they did a really good job. But of course, don't expect a happy ending with Romeo and Juliet. It's Romeo and Juliet. Tragedy is sort of implied with this series. Then we have another Australian exclusive one I don't think any other English-speaking country has gotten, at least. And that is Welcome to Irabu's Office, or in Japanese it is called Trapeze. Really quirky little show with this one. yeah, just very, very interesting. It's got live action segments. It's got like really really interesting little setup. It follows a psychiatrist. It follows a doctor who can help your problems and sort of adapts to the situation. He's always looking a little bit different, a little bit weird, and it just helps different people in different episodes with their psychological and mental issues. It's pretty damn good. And again, this show, all these shows are Notamune, which are from that animation block that really focused on very niche and non-otaku series, and I love them all. I really wish Notamune would get back to shows like this, because they're far and few between, unfortunately, now. Then we have Holic, probably one of the I'm really not a huge fan of Clamp, but Holic is probably my favorite of their series. I haven't seen everything that they've done, but that's mostly because I find everything just too convoluted and very self-satisfying. Like, oh, aren't we clever? We have so many interlocking universes, and oh ha ha ha. When it's I have some issues with Clamp, but Holic is pretty good. I really like the film as well. It balances the sort of humorous, lighthearted tone and the really creepy, messed up tone very well, and luckily it is more so the creepy side than the humorous. But it's been a long time since I've seen Holic. Again, one of my early DVD releases, and never pardon me. It's been several years since I've rewatched it. Yamada's First Time, Be Gotta Get HK is amazing. If you want a series that really has no hang-ups on talking about sex and sexual experience and growing up in puberty and all that sort of thing, Yamada's First Time is that show. Of course, it's sort of, the premise starts with a girl trying to lose her virginity and wanting to sleep with 100 guys, which is crazy. But it, rather than becoming a series focused on, like the importance of losing your virginity, which is like such a stupid thing to aspire to anyway, culturally, but individually, of course, as well. It focuses much more on your first love and like actually finding relationship and the idea that sex as an act should be with someone who you care about, who cares about you, rather than just like, yes, yeah, I lost my virginity, whoa, I'm so much better than everyone else. Like, that's not what that sort of intimacy should be about. And I think Yamada's First Time, the title may scare off a few people, but it's definitely a smarter series than it presents itself as. Then we have Yu Yu Hakusho, Ghost Files, the movie, and like the OVA series. Of course, only one of the films, not the other. But I'm a big Yu Yu Hakusho fan, as I said in my Blu-ray video, so again, no brainer. I wish we could get these on Blu-ray, but I'm not holding my breath. Then we have Air, one of Key's probably less popular series, but I really, really enjoy it for certain themes that it has, most notably, of course, motherhood. I think it's really the only... Clannad does get into motherhood a bit, but Air really is the one that focuses on it. And, yeah, it hits hard at the end. Like I said, Key sometimes is very hit or miss with me, and I always feel like for a lot of the very popular series, Air, Canon, Clannad, I'm being manipulated the whole time. But in saying that, it doesn't mean that the manipulation doesn't work. So I still feel sad, I still cry and get upset, but, yes, Air. Then we have Birdie the Mighty Decode, which is a sequel, reboot, whatever, of Birdie the Mighty, which was a 90s OVA. pretty interesting sci-fi series. I don't really know how else to quite explain it. It's sort of sci-fi superhero-esque action series. Then we have Blast of Tempest. This is the Australian release, as you can tell. Another series that I got for like $5 a piece per discs or per release. One that has gotten a release in the US, DVD only though, and by Aniplex, so it's like 15 times more expensive than these ones were. I have yet to finish this show. My sister and I watched probably the first half of this, and then never got back to it. So it is one that I want to finish one day, especially because it is sort of an interesting premise. But, yeah. Some of these I've started, but just haven't finished because I don't have a lot of time. So, I am working on trying to get through my backlog, luckily. Then we have Kwase in a Foreign Labyrinth. An adorable series about a young Japanese girl who is brought to France and sort of integrating into society there. If you're not really that familiar with French history, there was a period of time where France was absolutely infatuated with Japan and the Orient and the Far East. So there was a lot of push for learning about Japan and knowing Japanese people and having Japanese products, kimonos, chopsticks, enameled things. It was very Japan was very, very cool in France during this period, which is mid 19th century. So yeah, it is set during that period where we have a lot of interest in Japan from the French, and I think it works pretty well. Then we have Ghost Hunt, a horror series. This is actually the save release, just with the case flipped inside out. This show, like, I always forget how good it is, and then I rewatch it, and I'm just always blown away by, like, how legitimately creepy this series can be. There's one arc in here, the Bloodstained Labyrinth. This arc, oh my gosh, nightmares. I still, like, think about it and shudder, because it's horrifying. Oh, it's just really creepy. Guys, it's really good. It's a supernatural ghost sort of paranormal investigators series. If you're wanting a good horror supernatural series, that's probably one to check out if you haven't yet. Then we have Ghost Stories. It says Volume 5, but again, this is the entire series in one case. A show that is only famous because, or only well known because it has an incredible dub. It is apparently a monotonous, very boring children's show in Japanese, but when it was licensed, of course, most would say due to a package deal, so ADV had to take this in order to get another show. The studio was just like, or the production company, should I say, was just like, just do whatever you want with it. This isn't popular. Nobody likes this. Just go ahead and go crazy. And so they did. They dubbed it absolutely ridiculously. And it is, like, there are some jokes that are a little, like, they're dated. There's certain, dub industry jokes that were relevant at the time but haven't aged well, but oh my gosh, there's some other stuff that's so funny. It's just timeless hilarity, and we still quote this from time to time, my sister and I. Then we have Honey and Clover, one of the very first Notamune shows, although it is before they went to the 11 episode sort of release or schedule that they would later go into. A great Josei series. It's Josei or Seinen? I can never remember. About art school and love and, yeah, growing up and relationships and drama. But it's pretty great. Viz did release this series in the US. Madman released it here. It's pretty much identical discs from what I can tell, though, so I don't know. Then we have Canon. I think this is a lot of people's favorite key work, that or Clannad. Again, this one I had some issues with certain characters, especially, okay, this is gonna get me a lot of hate, but the last character arc in this, maybe it's because I sort of expected it. I wasn't nearly as moved by it as a lot of people were, but oh my god, okay, but, before you crucify me, this storyline, this girl here, who's like one of the first that they cover, most annoying character. Like, oh my god, introduction. I was just like, oh Jesus Christ, why? Um, but by the end of her story arc, bawling like a baby, couldn't tears, so many tears. Most of these characters are pretty heavy as well, but this character, I got it. Like, it was sad, and of course, but I was expecting it, so maybe that's why it didn't affect me. But I didn't expect to like this character in any way, shape, or form, but by the end of it, I cried the hardest for her. So, I mean, yeah. Again, very manipulative, I think. Then we have Kurenai, which is sort of reminiscent of Bunny Drop, or in more recent years we have, like, Black Bullet? Is that what that series is called? I can't remember. The one where it's like a guy and then a little girl who like fights giant bug creatures. This one, like, the little girl is under protection by the guy, and he's the one with the sort of crazy fighting abilities. But it is sort of that setup. Young girl, older boy. It's not a romantic thing. At least not in, like, I don't think in this series. They never really push that angle. It's pretty interesting. Not my favorite, but it's done pretty well. I think I would like to read the light novels for this series one day. Or, I think it's light novels. This has I think just the show. This also had OVAs, but the OVAs were, like, ones that were released with the light novels way later, so it has a bunch of characters that weren't, like, introduced in this, and so you just sort of assumed that you've read it, so it wouldn't make sense to actually include them with this release. Then we have Lovely Complex, one of my absolute favorites, one of the first romantic comedy series I watched. It took forever to get this in, like, a legal release of this in English. This is Discotheque's re-release. They did have a, like, fatter release that they did, a couple years before. Watch this show. Really watch it, guys. It's so funny. It's so relatable. The main characters actually act like humans, which is not always the greatest thing. In this sort of, like, romantic comedy series. And if you like Horror Mia, you'll like this series. Insofar as how the characters interact with each other, they actually act like friends, and that they enjoy each other's company, rather than just getting straight into romance, which, I mean, that's a big part of relationships, at least in my opinion. So, Lovely Complex, fantastic series. Watch it, guys. Then we have Night Raid 1931, which is based off of Manchuria, like when Japan and China were very at odds, just pre-Second World War. It has to do with Japanese spies in Shanghai and Manchuria and those sorts of areas. So, yeah, pretty interesting. It's been a while since I've watched it, though. Then we have Mr. Osamatsu, a series that has only been released in Australia, in English again. Sort of an exclusive that we have. Although I highly doubt we will get the second season under the same circumstances. This was licensed far before it was ever, like, aired, or its immense popularity became apparent, so I can only imagine that the second season's licensing fees will be immense. Hugely immense. But so funny. One of my favorite comedies of recent history. legitimately so funny. If you haven't watched Osamatsu-san, it's on Crunchyroll. Do yourself a favor and get into it, because those idiot brothers are just amazing. I don't really know how else to encourage you to watch. It's so fun. It's just it's so far gone. Like, you think they'll never go there, but they go there and then go even farther and oh my god, there's pushing the envelope, and then there's Mr. Osamatsu. So if you like just raunchy, crazy, over the top, totally inappropriate humor, Osamatsu-san is the show for you. Then we have Norame Cantabile, which, of course, if you're familiar with this show, this is only the first season. It did get an English dub, although it was never released in the US due to, I think, music rights issues. It follows a conductor and a pianist and sort of a larger orchestra. It's a romance, but also sort of just a drama and journey of musical discovery. This was... I used to own the Korean release of this on DVD. There were 6 single discs with English subtitles and the dub. It was the only way to get the dub or the show subtitled at all. The only legal way, should I say. Until this Siren Visual re-release a couple years later. Several years later. A couple years later after I bought the Korean release, should I say. Oh, it's so good. It's so good, guys. I really hope that someone picks up the rest of it, whether that be a US company or an English or a Australian company. I don't care. I just want season 2 and season 3. I'm a big fan of musical shows, as you can probably tell. Then we have Paranoia Agent, the only TV series that Satoshi Kon did. Great. Really, I think this is one... I watched it at a little bit too young of an age, so I didn't necessarily understand it the first time I watched it, but on subsequent rewatches, it makes a lot more sense. So I don't necessarily think it's a show for everyone, but it is one that you gain more from the more you watch, or the more frequently you rewatch. And of course, it's a thinking show comparatively to just get swept up in the plot show, although it does have elements of that. Paranoia Agent is great. I will never not be saddened at Satoshi Kon's early passing, because he was an incredible, incredible director and had some fascinating ideas. And it's such a shame that we have 4 films and a television show and half of a film to remember him by. He has plenty of manga, but I have always been of the opinion that he is a much stronger director and filmmaker than he was a mangaka. Then we have Planetes. I bought the complete collection, but I also have some of the special, the extras DVDs that were released with the special edition singles. Because Bandai released really special editions for the first 3. Then it didn't sell so well, so all of the extras ended up being on just the one disc for the rest of the singles, which is a shame, but I bought the singles to supplement, to get the extras basically, because there's such interesting extras on this show. A lot of actual discussion with scientists and astrophysicists and all sorts of things. This is a realistic sci-fi near future series set in space. Again, sort of like Robotics Notes, I appreciate how realistic it is. Based off of the manga of the same name by Makoto Yukimura. This has a much more cohesive plotline running through the entirety of it compared to the manga. So I do think in that sense it is stronger, but some of the larger plot does get a little bit muddled along the way, when it starts getting too deep into the terrorist activities. But I think it was a very unique and interesting look at these sorts of problems presented in the series. I highly, highly recommend this show. It may be a little bit hard to find. Well, it's hard to find now considering Bandai is gone, and this is one of the few shows that never got relicensed from their catalog, which is such a shame. I would kill to get a Blu-ray re-release of this show, because it's had a Blu-ray release in Japan for years and years and years, and it's one that I would definitely pay to own again on Blu-ray. It's so good. It's so good. Then we have Princess Tutu, a series that is a lot more than it looks. Sort of fairy tale-esque, ballet-inspired, dark drama. Yeah, I don't want to spoil anything, but it is, if you haven't watched this show, give it a chance. Especially give it a chance to build up to the second season. There are 2 seasons in this. Technically 2 seasons. It's all one show though. It starts very fluffy and very like, not too much of consequence, but it takes some pretty drastic turns in the second half, and that's when you're just like, oh my god, what is this show I'm watching? And thus this is one that has stayed a classic for so long, and for very, very good reason. There's, the things have persisting fans if they're deserving of it, because there are new wonderful shows every single season, and a lot of series that are very flash in the pan. They're super popular, but then, that same time next year, people have sort of moved on and forgotten about it. Princess Tutu is one of those series that still has really, really dedicated fan base, and people who, like, their entire opinions were changed from this show. Then we have Sweet Blue Flowers, the only Yuri anime that I have. I'm super, super highly anticipating the manga release. The series is written by one of my favorite mangaka, Takako Shimura, of Wandering Sun. And I cannot wait for the manga, because this is adorable. I love how, despite it being set in, like, a girls' school and, childhood friends and blah, 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 like, it is quite tropey. It works on so many different levels than what you expect from the series. It has actual character drama and growth and expression, and it works on a lot of different levels that I think a lot of these sort of lighter, fluffier series only do superficially. So in that sense, this is probably a great one to start with, although it doesn't really, even though it's a Yuri, it never really develops a romantic relationship with the characters on screen, because it never hits that point of the story in the manga. It really only adapts 3 volumes of this manga, and I believe it's 8 volumes in total. So yeah, it works in a different sense. But if you want the full story, read the manga. But that being said, this is a great, great, great series. I hope one day we get the Wandering Sun anime, because I adore that show. I adore it so much, and I really want it, but because, Japan, why are you like this? There is great risk that we will never see Wandering Sun, due to one of the side character voice actresses having been arrested for drug abuse. So, and because of like, oh my god, the shame, they're like, no, we will never re-release the show. Forget it ever existed. And I'm like, no, but I love that show so much, and I don't want it to be lost to time because it is really important. In any case, Sweet Blue Flowers, buy it, especially if you want good Yuri. Good Yuri. Next we have Toward the Terra. These are in the single covers of disc 1 and 2, but like with Ghost Stories, it does actually, both of these contain 3 discs, so it is the entire series of the 2006 like reboot or TV show of this manga. I own the manga. I also, as you'll see later, own the 90s film. This is a great story in all of its adaptations. Of course, with this film, it does go in a lot of different directions compared to the manga. The manga's only 3 volumes. So, yeah, it's pretty interesting to see what they actually managed to do with the story and how the characters interact and all that sort of thing. Something I mentioned before, the Holic movie. I absolutely adore this. It also comes with the Tsubasa movie, which is directly related to it. I hope to someday get the Blu-ray for this, the US Blu-ray, because this film especially is so interesting. It's so interesting. Tsubasa's pretty, it's pretty normal Tsubasa, but like, and Tsubasa's okay, but I don't really like. I don't like it enough to own it. But Holic is fabulous, especially this film. So, yeah. And then we have a Japanese release. This does have subtitles. It is 4 shorts that are about 5 minutes in length each, and this is called Tabimachi Show, Awaiting My Journey. And it's about all sorts of different relationships, some romantic, some just friendships, and all that sort of thing. It's pretty great, and it's about journeys, and whether that be physical or personal journeys. It's all really interesting. It's amazing what a good, simple story can do in 5 minutes. Because, man, my heart was warmed in all 4 of them. Warming those hearts. And, that's not super hard for me, but it was enough that I actually went out and bought this DVD because, yeah, we don't see shorts licensed all that often, and I didn't want to miss out on such a great, little series. Finally, for DVDs, we have, some movies and OVAs. These are, again, Japanese releases. This is the 3rd and 4th, technically 5th, This Boy OVAs, which I showed off the first 2 in my Blu-ray section. Again, Japanese releases with English subtitles. I don't know if we'll ever get these in English. We did get Blu-ray releases of the first 2, so maybe someday, but I'm a big fan of just the setup for all of these. They're very interesting, very curious, and the animation style is pretty great. I like this one more than Crystallization, but so this boy suffers from crystallization, and this boy is a professional wizard, professional magician, something like that. Yeah, so very, very interesting setups for all of them. They're all a bit within urban fantasy-esque. Then we have Brave Story, a film that I don't think ever got a US release, maybe a UK release, but it has the English dub. And I don't know if the UK release had an English dub, so that's it's really weird, because the dub was done, but then the US never got it, and the UK maybe got it, but it didn't have the dub. Australia got the dub, and it got it on it's so weird. It's not the best film, but there's some beautiful animation sequences in this. It is, like I said, it's not the greatest film. It is very messy because it's trying to fit a huge novel into a 2-hour film. Then we get to Millennium Actress, which is another Satoshi Kon film, and I think this is the US cover. but it's the Australian disc, I believe. Don't ask me. It's a little bit weird. But this, because the Australian and UK, again, this got a dub. Yeah, it's the UK disc, but I think it's the US actual front cover, because Australia's front cover and the UK's front cover was trash, I think, if I remember correctly. This is probably my favorite of his films, although I do adore Tokyo Godfathers as well. It's so good. I wish we would get a Blu-ray for this one day. But again, similar to Brave Story, it had a dub produced, but then the US never got it for some reason. I don't know why. It's such licensing is weird. And then we have Tokyo Godfathers, which is again another Satoshi Kon film. The best Christmas movie ever made, in my opinion. And it's so good. This is perfectly highlights his comedic tone. It follows a bunch of three homeless people who find a abandoned baby on Christmas Eve, and they're trying to get the baby, find its mother and all sorts of things. It's so good, and it's perfectly Kon. It's perfectly Kon. It captures all the weird quirkiness, the love for really strange characters, as well as just the comedic tone and the really weird sort of trippy psychological aspect that he puts in all his films as well. Then we have, like I said earlier, the 90s Toward the Terror film. Again, another adaptation of the manga. All of the manga, the TV show, and this are all different, with the same basis, of course. It follows similar story beats, but they're all very different sort of experiences overall. I'm a big fan of Toward the Terror, so I really like all of them for different reasons. Then we have Interstellar 5555, the story of the secret star system. A collaboration between Daft Punk and Leiji Matsumoto. This is basically one big music video, animated music video. Yeah, it's quite weird, but again, this is one my sister really, really loves. And if you like Daft Punk, this is definitely one for you to pick up. It's really interesting to see the sort of collaborative work that goes on within the industry and sort of the weird gems you can find. Then finally we have Spring in Chaos. This is a Tokyo Pop DVD release, sort of a biography of the author who wrote Now the Galactic Railroad. Jeez, the title completely lost from my brain for a second there. So documenting his life, and it is in the style that Galactic Railroad is in, sort of in the same world with animal-esque characters. It's very, very insightful, and I do recommend it if you're a fan, again, of sort of interesting OVA stuff, especially if you like to learn a bit more about actual influential people within Japan. It's gorgeous. There's some phenomenal animation sequences. I want to rewatch it soon. I rewatched it when I got it, which was only a month or so ago, but I want to rewatch it because it is so good. Just really, 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 really good. And I think that is it. So, as you can tell, a lot less DVDs than Blu-rays, but some of them are still Blu-rays, some of them thankfully this video did not take as long, but yes. So that was everything in my anime collection for the DVD-sized packaging. Of course, like I said, there were plenty that included Blu-rays or were Blu-ray only releases, but I just happened to organize them via size rather than actual disc. I hope you guys enjoyed. Thankfully this one wasn't as long as part one, but hopefully still pretty informative. It just works out that DVD size stuff, I have quite a bit less of, just because I do try and get Blu-ray wherever I can, and I have upgraded plenty of series to Blu-ray over the years, as you could probably tell. So thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video, guys. Bye till then.